Hello! So, because production has given me quite a few samples, I actually ended up with multiple copies of every card in the game. And I realized I could show you what a constructed deck would look like in Algomancy. So, I don't know, let me know if you want to see more of these, but this is a deck that I've been playing a lot in person, but also play tested online a lot during the creation of the game, and I just really like how it plays. So, the rules for constructed in Algomancy is 30 total cards, and you can have up to 2 copies of any one card. So, like 2 Luminous Arc you're able to run, which is why the pledge tier was constructed bundle, I think, to get 2 copies of the game, because then you just have a full playset of every single card to make whatever deck you want. So this deck is kind of like a mid-range control deck, and it's really based around doing damage to your own units. So let's look at the finishers first, because these cards are kind of insane, and like, this is how you win the game. So Molten Tormentor, when I survive damage, each opponent sacrifices that many units. A really ridiculous effect, really strong. And then Eminence of the Barons, when I'm dealt damage, you can pay 1. If you do, I fight another target unit. So if you're able to have this take damage, you can have it fight an opponent's unit, and then the opponent's unit will deal damage to this, so you can fight another unit. So these are your end game, control cards, game enders, whatever. So they're very strong, but both of these require you to do damage to them to get things started. So you're going to need fireballs, ping, or something like that to support them. So probably the best enabler is Bellowing Boulder. So when I attack or block, I deal 1 damage to each unit. Straightforward, clears tokens, which can be a problem for a deck like this, but then it's also a way to just self-damage. You have Bellowing Boulder, Molten Tormentor. You attack with both of them, this self-triggers. So that's great. Bellowing Boulder also has Graft, and this mechanic lets you add other effects to it. So a spell like Flame Juggle creates 3 Fireball 1. Those are spells that just do 1 damage to something. So another way to ping your units is to play Flame Juggle, but you can graft that onto Bellowing Boulder, and then when it attacks or blocks, you get the effect of Flame Juggle as well. So this is kind of like your late game card advantage engine as well. So just a really sweet card. I'm pretty happy about that. Just an all-around good beatdown card. Bub, Unaware, ignores units stat changes. So if your opponent's playing a deck that buffs their units and you have Bub in play and he blocks them or whatever, he just ignores whatever stat changes. So if it's a 1/1 with 1,000 +1/+1 counters on it, Bub doesn't care. So this is just a good failsafe for situations where things get out of hand. So we like Bub. Awoken Tomb as well. Pretty good anti-aggro card. So it has Haste, which lets you play it before the battle step. And then whenever it's dealt damage, you make an XX unit where X is the damage is dealt once per turn. So if you see your opponent's playing aggro and they have a big board, you can kind of haste this in to help defend yourself during that turn. So this is really good because aggro can be strong, and this is a good anti-aggro card. And then we get to the heart of the deck, because Algomancy, you start with 2 mana on the first turn. These are going to be most of your turn 1 plays. So Molten Riftbreaker is probably the best card for this deck. So it's when I spawn, create 2 Fireball 1s. So those are the spell tokens you can use to target your guys and do damage. When I despawn, negate all allied spells. So this is a pretty strong drawback. So the idea is you play this, you get the fireballs, but then if they kill it when you're trying to use the fireballs, then it gets countered. But this card is a virus, so you can add this line of text onto opposing unit. So let's go to a situation where they have an Awoken Tomb in play. You can augment this onto their guy. And now it has the line of text, when I despawn, negate all allied spells. And if I have Luminous Arc, deal 6 damage to this. If they played a bunch of spells, you put this onto their guy and then kill it. Now you just countered every single thing they had on the stack. So it's a weird counter spell, but the fact that it can do that and it's also an engine for you is really sweet, because you put that in combination with Graxlid. So this is 1 mana, negate an effect targeting me, which is a spell on the stack or something. That effect's controller draws a card. So that includes the spell token Fireballs from Molten Riftbreaker. So you can basically play Molten Riftbreaker, get some Fireballs, target Graxlid with one of them, and then use its ability to turn this into a card draw engine. So this is like a pretty sick early game card draw engine. You have like Riftbreakers, you're drawing cards off Graxlid. We have Flame Juggle for more cards off Graxlid. Graxlid can only draw one card a turn, but in Algomancy, drawing one card is huge. So these cards are just really versatile because this is also like protection. So, you know, your game ending Eminence of the Barrens, if you put Graxlid onto it, now this has the ability to, like, if your opponent tries to kill it, you can counter the stuff killing it. They get to draw a card, but it's a huge tempo swing. So this is like a card draw engine. It's just a creature that can block. And then it's also saves your units later. And it's a virus, so you can do this augment, you know, for those Magic players at instant speed. So, you know, if they try and kill your Eminence of the Barrens, you have this in hand. You can augment it onto it, and now you can save your guy. So really cool. And then the effect stays there, right? So then you can turn your Eminence of Barrens into a card draw engine if you want to. These two dudes love this card. It's a piercing, which is kind of like trample from Magic. So excess damage goes over, and you sacrifice it after combat. So if you're trying to push through damage, this card's really great because it's a 7/1 piercing. And you can stack this in formation with like Bub. So when you attack, now the whole stack has piercing, so it's like 12 trampling damage essentially. So that's a good way to push through like the last bits of damage in the game. But the other thing is this is a virus, so you can add this line of text onto an opponent's unit at instant speed, basically. So like, again, if they have an Awoken Tomb, you can augment this on there, and now Awoken Tomb gets sacrificed at the end of combat. So it's like a really good aggro card that you also can use as removal, which I think is just super sick. And then Metamorphic Luminary, just a good role player. It's a 2-drop that makes a crystal, which is a spell token that gives something +1/+1 counter on it, but it has graft, and that's the key, because then you can put any of the other graft effects onto it. So, for example, if Bellowing Boulder were to die, you can then turn Metamorphic Luminary into a Bellowing Boulder, which is like, now when I attack or block, you're going to make a crystal and do 1 damage to each unit, which is pretty cool. Or, you know, Flame Juggle, start making fireballs when you attack. Only 1 copy, because, I don't know, you don't need too many. Like, when you use the graft stuff and then it dies, you lose everything. So you don't need too many graft enablers in Constructed, but just a good card. This card I actually haven't tested out so much, but when I spawn, make 2 shards. Just a good like turn 1 play to like get you on the board, basically. And then our 1-drops, just good value cards. So this is when I spawn or die, make a fireball 1. Again, you can just play this early, turn it into card draw, trigger one of your units. And then this card has the ability to sacrifice it to make a fireball 1, and it has graft as well. So those who play Magic, which I think is most of these people on this channel, this reads kind of like Past in Flames because of the graft mechanic. So if you have like Bellowing Boulder that died, you can graft it onto Oracle of the Flame, and now you can sacrifice it to make a fireball 1 and do 1 damage to each unit. Or again, like Flame Juggle, you can do some stuff. So this is an early game card against aggro. You can like block, sacrifice it, make a fireball, kill something. Or late game, if you draw this, you can basically buy back a big part of your graveyard or your bin if you haven't used it for grafting stuff elsewhere. So just an overall sweet card. Then we get to the suite of interaction. You know I had to do it. Soul Tithe. The owner of target effect may pay 1. If they don't, negate that effect and draw a card. Now, those who play Magic probably think this is like Mana Tithe, but really what this card is for is countering your own triggered effects most of the time. You can get your opponent when they tap out, but that's pretty rare in Algomancy because of the turn structure. So what this is mostly for is like, if you have Smoldering Inferno and you're like trying to attack with it, it has a trigger after combat. You can Soul Tithe your own trigger, decide not to pay the 1, so this effect gets countered and you draw a card. So you basically cantrip, counter this and draw a card. The real one is to save yourself from Molten Riftbreaker, because if this is in play and they kill it, they can counter like your whole stack of spells. So being able to counter this trigger in a pinch is also useful. But I like the gotcha of, making your opponents never want to tap out, because this is quite punishing, even if it is rare in Algomancy just by the way the turn structure is. Some anti-aggro, Flame of History, does 1 damage to any target. Reaping says if you kill something with this, you get to draw a card. So, if they have some early cheap plays, kill it, draw a card. Fight lets 2 things fight. Yeah, pretty straightforward, but really good if you have like Eminence in the Barrens, you want to trigger it, or there's just a lot of beefy creatures in this deck, so that's a strong one. I've shown Flame Juggle a lot, so you kind of know what that does. Luminous Arc, just 2 mana, 6 damage. Straightforward, pretty good card. Then we have some more counter magic. So Flame Shield negates all effects, which is spells, activated abilities, triggered abilities, so it just clears the stack. And then for each non-token spell negated, you get a Fireball. Some minor upside. And then Return to Nature again, negate all effects, erase all mods. So mods are like augments, graphs, and stuff like that. So some decks play to a lot of it. So this basically clears the stack and kind of clears the board. Basically, everyone's playing fair with this. And then we have, I love this card, Gravitational Correction. Change the targets of target effect unless this controller pays X. So just another gotcha card. There's so much interaction in this deck that, having to play around this, kind of overwhelms your opponents sometimes. So this can be an insane tempo swing. 2 Wildfires, just deal X damage to any target. Battle speed, so you can do this whenever. Good for killing stuff. Good, you can spend 1 and trigger your Eminence. Or you can just go face, finish out the game with these. And then Channel Through is a pretty insane card. Deal 2 damage to each of X target allies. And then for each ally damage this way, distribute 2 damage among that to target opponent's units. So if you Channel Through for 1, let's say, you're going to do 2 damage to one of your guys, and then divided 2 damage among their units. If you do it for 2, you're going to hit 2 of your units, and then divide 4 damage among their units. This can be interacted with, so if you Channel Through targeting Awoken Tomb and Bellowing Boulder, and they kill one of them, you're only going to get to deal 2 damage to them. But this is kind of like the engine card of the deck where you want to do damage to your stuff, like Channel Through on, what's a good example? Awoken Tomb and Graxlid, 2 damage here, 2 damage here. You make a 2/2, that's great. Interestingly, Channel Through targets Graxlid, so you can negate it to draw a card. So if you go for Channel Through on these 2, the opponent tries to counter it, you can basically trade it for a card with Graxlid. So that's a really sweet interaction there. And that's more or less the deck. It's really sweet, a lot of fun. Let me know if you want to see more deck techs, because I have a lot of fun brewing them and playing them. And I'm going to try and get some matches if you guys are interested too. So let me know, and I'll see you soon.